All right, here we go. Question number 9 from our Precalculus homework number 12. In MyLab Math, we have a GeoGebra question, and it concerns row echelon form. So before I click the link and open the window, I want to go to my scratch work and explain, first of all, what is row echelon form, and then how do you achieve row echelon form. So, to the scratch work. So row echelon form is a special format of your augmented matrix where on this major diagonal you would have all ones and everybody below that has to be 0. So the elements on the diagonal have to be ones, and then every element below that diagonal have to be 0. That's what makes an augmented matrix be in row echelon form. Now, if your matrix is not in row echelon form, you're going to need to perform row operations to get here. So let's talk about the order in which you need to get each one of these elements. First, the very first element you need to achieve is a 1 in the upper left-hand corner. And next, you would focus on getting the zeros below that. In other words, you want to get your first column correct, and then you can move over to column 2. The next element you would want to achieve is a 1 in the middle row. Once you get a 1 there, then you can achieve the objective of getting a 0 below that. And then your final objective would be making this coefficient a 1. So do you see the order? It's kind of like a zigzag order where you start up here at 1 and you go down, up and down, and then over. That is the order in which you get those elements so that you can get to row echelon form. Now, the row operations needed to achieve those objectives may differ depending on the elements in your matrix. So now let's go back and look at our GeoGebra question, and we'll walk through the row operations needed. Okay, so here in our GeoGebra window, it says use the operations below to reduce the given matrix to row echelon form. So here is our matrix. We're going to try to get this into row echelon form. Remember, that means that you need ones on the diagonal, and it looks pretty much like that's almost already achieved. And then the 3, the -2, and the 3, these 3 elements need to become 0. So we already have our first objective accomplished. We do have a 1 in the upper left-hand corner. Next, we need to get the 3 and the -2 below it to become 0. So let's look at what we have for options for row operations. Interchange means that you would simply switch 2 of the rows. That is a valid row operation where you swap maybe rows 1 and 2 or rows 2 and 3. You swap a row to achieve an objective. The next row operation is a row multiplication, where you can simply multiply a row through by a number. So say if we needed this 3 to be a 1, we would multiply by 1/3 and only change row 2. So row multiplication will only change the elements in the row that you multiply by. Remember, we do need a 0 here. One of the things you cannot do is you can't multiply by 0 because that would have to apply to the entire row. And if I multiplied through by 0, it would basically eliminate that row. The other row operation is replace. Now this one's probably the more complicated row operation, where you're going to have to multiply a row and then add it to another row. So the row replacement is also known as row multiplication with addition. And that is the one we're going to use first, because I notice if I multiply the first row by -3 and then add it to the second row, it would eliminate this 3. So let me show you what I'm talking about. It says we want to replace row 2. We actually want to replace row 2 with row 2 plus, and then we want to multiply row 1 by -3. Okay, so check this out. It says -3 times row 1 plus row 2. -3 times 1 is -3 plus 3 would give me a 0. And let's click the apply button that's needed in order to apply this row operation. Oh, and we can see that it does achieve the objective that I hope to achieve, which is a 0. Next, we need to get the -2 to become a 0. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to use row 1 added to row 3. So we're going to come back and we're going to change our row operation and change that to a 2. And now let me explain what this is going to do. This now says that we're going to multiply row 1 by 2 and add it to row 3. So we need to change this to row 3. So again, describing what this says, now that we've changed this to row 3, it says we're going to multiply. Times means multiply row 1 by 2 and then add it, plus means add, to row 3. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus a -2 would give me a 0. And then to see if that's right, we need to click apply, and we can see that that does achieve the objective. And so we're going to continue doing row operations until we get all of our objectives achieved. All ones on the diagonal, and this -5 to be a 0. Okay, stick with me. This is a long one. The next objective is to get 13 to become a 1. Now the way we're going to do that is we're going to do that through a row multiplication. We want to multiply row 2 by the reciprocal of 13, which is 1/13. If I multiply through by a 13th, that should get this element to become 1. And clicking apply, even though it messed up this number pretty bad, it did achieve our objective. Next element, we need to get -5 to become 0. And the way we're going to do that is through row multiplication with addition. So that is the replace option. We want to replace row 3, and we're going to need to multiply row 2 by 5. So let's change that to 5. Change this to row 2. And if I multiply row 2 by 5, adding it to row 3, 5 times 1 is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. So that should achieve our objective. I might also mention that once you get your first column the way it should be, you don't use row 1 anymore. And so that's why we're switching to using row 2 now. So click and apply. We should see this element become a 0 because that's the way we designed it. And then the last element that we need to achieve here is we need to get this -0.92 to become a 1. And so how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to multiply row 3 by whatever it's going to take to make that a 1. So I said the reciprocal. Let's see if it'll accept that. The reciprocal would be -1 over 0.92. And if I click apply, look at that. It does make that a 1. Now at this point we have achieved all of our objectives. This is now row echelon form. We're ready to check and see if we're right. And it is correct. Man, that is a lot of stuff covered in one video. So here's what I need you to do. If you have a question about any of the row operations or any of the steps that I've covered here in this video, please leave those in the comment section below, or you can text me, and thanks for watching.